there's been so much chatter about the Aston Villa versus Maccabi Tel Aviv game. Last Thursday, it was announced that no Maccabi Tel Aviv fans will be allowed to attend the match at Villa Park on the 6th of November due to safety concerns. Since then, there has been something of a pile-on from all sides. Now, amidst discussion by UK politicians to see the original ban overturned, Maccabi have now said they will not be requesting an allocation of tickets, regardless of discussions between the British government and the authorities. So they say they don't want tickets for next month's Europa League match away to Aston Villa over their own safety concerns for their own fans. That is what they cite, the safety concerns that they have for their own fans. Maccabi have said, our fans regularly travel all over Europe without incident, and to suggest that the reason our fans cannot be allowed to travel is due to their behaviour is an attempt to distort reality. Our fans know all too well this tactic and are too familiar where it can lead to. As a result of the hate-filled falsehoods, a toxic atmosphere has been created which makes the safety of our fans wishing to attend very much in doubt. The question remains, has a football match here been weaponised by all sides to further sow division? Green Party councillor and political commentator Martin Abrams joins us live. Martin, I'll put that very point to you. Has this match been weaponised by all sides to further sow division?
Well, good morning, and good morning to your listeners. I mean, let's be clear. Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are not the victims here. And as soon as they made this announcement last night that they wouldn't be accepting their ticket allocation, it was patently obvious that there'd then be a certain amount of furore trying to sort of conflate and frame this as a victory for the mob or a victory for anti-Semites and anti-Semitism, because there's been some absolutely shocking conflation in all of this. So I'm a Jewish councillor in Lambeth, and I find it really disturbing that people's concerns around these fans from Maccabi Tel Aviv attending Birmingham have been framed as anti-Semitism. Let's be clear, Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are notorious football hooligans. They have a litany of examples of incidents from when they travel to away games or their home games in their domestic league. I mean, literally 24 hours ago, their derby game against Hapoel Tel Aviv had to be abandoned by the Tel Aviv police because both sides were throwing flares, were throwing smoke grenades, they were fighting before the game. Why would we actually want these fans to come to the UK?
Yeah, Martin, you're not talking about all Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. You're talking about maybe a section of them. And the club itself say they've been doing all they can do to try and stamp out any of these potential troublemakers. In their statement, they say, we've been working tirelessly to stamp out racism within the more extreme elements of our fan base. So they recognise it and they're trying to get rid of it.
Let's take this back a little bit, okay? Because I want to go back. So in February 2022, a couple of weeks after Russia had illegally invaded Ukraine, UEFA and FIFA banned them from all international competition, their national teams and their domestic teams from playing any international competition. That was the right decision. Okay, during the South African apartheid, 30 years, South African teams, rugby, cricket, other sports were all banned from playing any international competition because of the disgraceful apartheid regime that was taking place over 30 years in South Africa. Now, Israel, over the last 2 years, have been committing a genocide in Gaza that is now widely regarded as a genocide from the International Association of Genocide Scholars, from Amnesty International, and from the UN Commission.
That's something they did.
No, let me finish.
Martin, you've had a good run at it. That's something they would deny. Simon, where do you stand on this?
Well, it's an interesting perspective because I'm always trying to decouple politics from sport as much as I possibly can, because I don't like politicians anywhere near sport, because most of the time they don't know what they're talking about, or they use it for an agenda, an alternative set of agendas. But I'm trying to work out where the central concern is about this particular individual football match. If you want to campaign against UEFA for allowing them to play in a tournament, and you want to conflate the Russian situation with the Gaza situation, that's your gift. Then you go campaign against UEFA. But once the game has been sanctioned, we now look at the individual motivations for the agenda against it, because the position of Martin's side of the argument was to drag this into the political domain, because ultimately it did. Ayub Khan made it in his opening statement, made it a position which is we cannot ignore the political landscape. So why are we talking about the safety of fans, or are we talking about a political agenda? Because having owned a football club and sat with the safety and advisory groups, knowing that their observations and their recommendations are not binary, they're an advisory group, it is a situation where you deal with the hooliganism side of things. So if you're talking about the hooliganism side of things, because lots of football clubs have an element of fans that behave rather poorly. And I understand the argument, why would we want to import it? It's like Napoli fans came over to Leicester recently and behaved very poorly in a UEFA Cup match, and no one was campaigning for their fans not to come here. And I saw you give 3 examples about 3 football matches in response to Lisa Nandy's argument about the precedent never being done before. All of your arguments are wrong, because in 2022, the reasons why the Rangers-Napoli game was not allowed to go ahead was because the Queen had passed away and the police were dealing with all the matters around the morning. In 2023, when Legia Warsaw played Villa, it had to do with the fans were sold tickets, but their fighting outside of the stadium resulted in the police on the very day banning the fans from going in the stadium. And the final example which you give, which is Rangers versus Celtic, is a complete misnomer, because I've been in a boardroom of Rangers and Celtic, and it's 2 football clubs that dislike as Jim knows very well, dislike their players celebrating in the away stadium. So they've banned one another, not because of the circumstances that you are detailing. So here we are now with a situation saying, is this about politics or is this about sport? Talking about from a sport point of view, I don't want you guys anywhere near sport, because most of the time you weaponize it and use it for your own particular agenda and your own particular motivations.
No, Simon, this was an operational policing matter by Birmingham City Council and West Midlands Police. They took a decision which should have stood. The politics was then introduced.
Having sat in situations where I've made decisions with the SAG group and the local police, and the police are a resource that you hire in and you bring them in to get the safety certificate. For example, I wanted 8,000 Millwall fans sitting inside a stadium, and the police said we don't want it. I provided the prerequisite amount of funding to be able to make sure that the police could police the game properly. So the argument is cooperation with Maccabi Tel Aviv. We don't want your 3,000 fans coming over here behaving badly. We want you to do your job, which is make sure that we know who's coming over, when they're coming over, and what they're doing. But the default position from your side of the argument was not to stop the hooliganism, was to stop the game or stop the fans.
Well, let me ask you this, Simon. Do you think it's right that Russian teams are banned from all international competitions?
You're asking me to conflate back into
no,
hang on a second. I don't live in your hang on a second. I don't live in your world. I'm not trying to drag politics into sport. I sit here repeatedly on this show saying I don't want politics anywhere near sport. And conflating the Russian argument, conflating the Russian argument. Hang on. You want to drag me into, if you want to have that conversation, have it on the BBC, right? This is a sports show that's talking about the prism of sport. If you want to conflate the Russian argument with the Gaza-Israeli argument, we're dragging politics back into sport. I don't want to do that. I want you guys out of sport. I want you guys stop utilising sport to serve up an agenda. I'm a father.
You invited me on your show.
I'm a father.
You invited me on your show.
And absolutely, you're having an opportunity. You're having an opportunity to talk about your particular view because it's a sports matter, and you're dealing in the space of sport and hiding behind the veneer of saying it's about hooliganism when we know it's about something else. I object to the cultural bullying side of things. I object to the idea that ultimately football fans are being categorised in a homogenous group, and you have been able to do that in this conversation. Just simply say that the entire Maccabi Tel Aviv fan base are racists and hooligans, and that's not true and it's not accurate. And you've used 3 examples to push back against the minister or the DCMS to suggest that 3 games that were cancelled previously were based upon the same circumstances, and you're wrong there too.
What happened on Sunday night, Simon?
What happened on Sunday night was something that happened in 2014 as well. 2 teams that don't play one another very, very regularly clashed in a circumstance that is not acceptable. That doesn't mean that necessarily it's going to replicate itself. In the same way that Napoli fans came to Leicester and do the same things inside their stadiums, but no one's trying to stop Napoli coming over and playing an English football. Why is that?
Martin, do you accept finally that the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans will not be coming, but it's because their own club has safety concerns about their own fans. That's the reason, right?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that is good news. But listen, I take it back to the fact that Israeli football teams should not be playing in international tournaments to start with.
Well, off you go to UEFA and take that argument with them then.
I mean, I will.
Off you go then. Off you go then. Do that one, because this argument's an easy one for you to have. Go have it with UEFA.
Simon, you've still not answered. If you think it's right for Russian teams to be banned, if you think it was right for the South African teams,
I think it's a completely different set of circumstances, and you're conflating it into a political argument. Take that argument up with UEFA. Take that argument up with UEFA.
Well, we won't be having this conversation if UEFA had taken that decision.
But we're now talking about with the reality of the fact that they haven't taken this decision, conflating the invasion of an unprovoked invasion of Ukraine against a situation in Israel, which is a very difficult line for me to walk because I am a father. I'm horrified by the the images that I see coming out of Gaza, in the same way that I was horrified when I saw the October 7th atrocity as well. So I take your point, but again, we're dragging this conversation back into politics. The here and now is the game has been sanctioned. So why now are we stopping Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from coming here? I would suggest the veneer that you're putting forward and your side of the argument putting forward about hooliganism is a veneer for something completely different.
Well, the veneer of it being an anti-Semitic, issue that Maccabi fans, Israeli fans, and the conflation between stopping Israeli fans that have a history of hooliganism as some kind of anti-Semitic attack on those fans is an absolute disgrace. Because what that does is conflate Jewish people with those fans.
Martin, thank you for joining us. No doubt you've got a lot on your agenda. Green Party councillor and political commentator Martin Abrams. But the upshot is there'll be no Maccabi Tel Aviv fans in Birmingham for that match on the 6th of November.